So Trump's former campaign manager for 100 days has been found guilty of bank fraud from 12 years ago, and his personal attack lawyer fixer has now pled guilty to campaign finance violations and to bank fraud as well. Let's go ahead and dive into this and take a look. Is the White House reeling? How much danger is Trump in? And are you worried? I've been watching the mainstream media all day, and these people are absolutely guilty. They think they got him now. I've also been talking to a few of my more liberal friends and trying to get their viewpoint on it. And what their viewpoint ultimately is that the dominoes are starting to fall. They've gotten people close to Trump now, and they're going to get Trump. Now, I'm not really worried about this because essentially, or at least Manafort and Gates and Papadopoulos, none of these people knew Trump, other than Manafort was his campaign head for about 100 days, and then he was fired. So we're kind of in this interesting little point where, yes, there are people around him that were now found guilty or have pled out, but we're still nowhere with this Russian collusion. Yes, Russia meddled, but did Trump collude? I still don't think he has. We still haven't seen or found any proof. And the only thing that really worries me out of all these convictions is Cohen. This whole thing doesn't actually make that much sense to me. So Cohen pleads guilty to some bank fraud and campaign finance reform or campaign finance violations. So that the campaign finance violation worries me to a certain degree now. Essentially what they're trying to do is they're trying to hang him with what John Edwards did, where his wife had cancer, he had an affair, she got pregnant, and then the donor spent like $1 million to pay her off. I just don't see this in Trump's case. So what they're trying to do is make the case that Trump or that Michael Cohen set up this business to pay Stormy Daniels and another woman, $150,000, $130,000 to keep their story silent. And although this is not illegal, what they're saying is that because it was done during the campaign to help protect the campaign, therefore it's a campaign donation. And campaign donations are regulated to a certain amount, and businesses really can't give anymore. And this is where the campaign finance violation comes in, is that they set up a company to make this payment, and that even though Trump reimbursed him, it's still a campaign finance. Now, they've never really convicted many people of this, and every campaign gets hit with campaign finance. So I don't think this is a death nail in Trump's prosecution or persecution, depending on how you're looking at it. But what really gets me here is just the fact that Cohen, or at least what's not making sense to me, is Cohen is begging to talk to somebody. He wants to talk to Mueller. He wants to talk to all these people. He's looking for any type of deal that he can get. And it just doesn't seem like anybody's interested in talking to him, except for the state of New York, which is, they're just trying to get his tax records, and not even worried about that. That's just a big political game. But the fact that he wants to talk to Mueller, and the fact that he wants to cut a deal with just about anybody that he wants, and none of them are talking to me, really lays doubt to what he actually has, or what that he thinks he has. They went through all his records. Mueller and all them, they had first dibs on them. They looked at them and then decided to give it to somebody else. So I just don't think anything's there. Now, the interesting theory that I'm getting from a lot more of my liberal friends is that they're closing in on Trump, that Manafort is campaign chairman, and all of these indictments and guilty pleas and convictions now, that they're really closing in on Trump. And I've tried to make the point that all these people have found nothing up until this campaign finance violation. There has not been anything that has to do with the campaign or Trump in general. Essentially what they're doing is they've gone into the past of every person who ever worked for Trump, and as they find things, they're charging them, and Trump's kind of making the point of, well, if they weren't in my campaign, then none of this would be happening to any of these people, and that it's a giant witch hunt. And in one case, it is true. They've passed on these charges for Manafort quite a few times in the past, and that they just got brought up again now. Really, kind of the Cohen thing is basically, from what I understand, he put up all these cabs as collateral for a loan for his cab company, and he said that each one of these cabs is worth $1 million, and essentially he didn't put that on his tax forms. So it's kind of this tax fraud, bank fraud, where you're lying to the bank or you're lying to the IRS. What went on here, and Cohen decided to take a plea deal, probably seeing what happened to Manafort, getting up to 315 years in prison, and then ends up with, I think his maximum sentence is probably about 80 years now. So we'll see where all this goes. I just don't really see any of this touching Trump in the long run. They might try to convict him of campaign finance violations, but even from then, because of the reimbursement, and anytime, if you read the article by the old chair of campaign finance, committee, he even went over and said you can't convict him on this. It's that he could just say that to protect his family or protect his business value, that he paid these women to make it silent so that he wouldn't go public, and voila, campaign finance is out. So as long as he can make a reasonable case that this was not only for the campaign, they really don't have a case. And if you actually look at the John Edwards campaign, which it was a lot worse than this, and there was donors outside paying off this other woman, they still couldn't get him convicted on these same charges. So I don't think Trump has actually got a lot to worry about here in the long run, even though the media seems to be foaming at the mouth over this. And I haven't been able to read the article, but apparently there's an article on the Wall Street Journal where they colluded to pay these women. And again, I just, the act isn't illegal. He didn't pressure these women into having sex. It was all consensual. He set up a non-disclosure agreement where they couldn't talk, and then he paid them some money. And now some of the women are complaining that they thought they were telling their story. They sold it to a newspaper, and then they killed it on the behalf of Trump. Again, this is another so what moment. This happens all the time. Publicists and everything for every famous person in the world do this. Most rich people get blackmailed at some point, and it's easier to pay these things off. And you'll actually hear a lot of rich people between athletes and celebrities and just businessmen talk about this all over the place. So it doesn't seem like anything out of the ordinary, although it is kind of a black eye, because regular people like me and you, we don't have to go through this. We're not getting blackmailed. We're not trying to get people trying to get payouts from us. And I just don't see this really materializing into something. But with how much the Swamp and Mueller are pushing, they could try to turn it into something, and then it really becomes into a popularity contest. Because this really isn't a criminal charge. This is a whole political charge. This is a political push to get Trump out of office, to get him impeached and removed. I don't see them. You can't indict a sitting president based on the DOJ's regulations, and it's just not going anywhere in that case. So what they're trying to do is find enough on Trump to basically say this unethical man and he should be removed. But then you got high crimes and or treason that would have to go to. So I just don't see this really reaching that, and this is all becoming a giant PR game that's going on every single day. And at one point you wonder if they're ever going to move on to this, because essentially you have both sides kind of looking at each other and saying you're involved in a giant conspiracy theory. So it's going to be interesting to see which one wins out in the end. Thanks for watching my video. Like and share. Go ahead and check us out on Twitter and on the Facebook page, and check out our Patreon page. And I'll go ahead and see you guys later.